I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are.
I was originally scheduled on the first airplane. It was hijacked on September 11th.
What the latest theory is that one of the engines did not match.
All I know for sure, you can't go back to an ordinary life.
To evacuate.
Let's go!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show, episode number 12. Once again, I am joined with Captain Steve. Captain Steve, how are you doing today?
Wonderful, Gary. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm all trying to settle in on this new studio, so hopefully this goes well. I'm already losing my Florida tan. But once again, Captain Steve, we got this problem with people taking their bags. There was a United 787 LAX engine fire. Let's go ahead and play the video real quick, and I'll go ahead and get your reaction.
Listen, we are going to evacuate.
We're making a turn now.
We're going to land our short. People will be coming out the right side, the side toward the runway.
Come this way, 429. Jump inside, get away from the plane. Come this way. Leave all that behind. Leave on this way, jump this way, get away from the engine.
And the flight attendants, again, are yelling, leave the bags. And the person that's filming right behind is standing there filming, and the person's just still won't drop the bag, just keeps going with it.
It's shocking to me. Everybody thinks they're the exception to the rule. So when commands are getting barked out to them, it's not for them, it's for the guy behind them or somebody else. And I just wonder about the mentality getting off the airplane and having to clutch your bag so importantly. There was an old movie that Steve Martin did back in the day called The Jerk. And one of the funny parts about the movie was he was leaving home, but he had all the things that he thought he needed in life. And, he had like a lamp and a chair and a thermos. And he ends up with, like 25 things in his arms of the things he can't live without. And it's serious on an airplane. You might not live if you stop and take that bag. There's people behind you as well. You got to get off that airplane in a hurry.
Yeah, the best example I can think of is it's like drunk driving. Is somebody going to get hurt for sure? Not necessarily. Is somebody going to die for sure? Not necessarily. But your odds are going astronomically through the roof. Right. And so when people just tend to ignore this, I don't get it. I remember when I did one of my viral videos on the Toronto crash, and I talked about people, hey, why are you taking a bag? The plane's flipped over. One of the persons, the comments I saw literally said, you're not going to tell me what to do. I don't care. And I'm like, you know what? This is what gets to me is because I'm very, kind of libertarian, laissez-faire. I don't like a lot of extra rules that the government should be telling people. But this is kind of an example where, people won't do something unless you force their hand. And I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are. It doesn't seem like it's getting better because every time we have one of these situations, it's happened. What do you think your solution with this be? Because I do have a friend, a fairly big following on social media, is air traffic controller. He's calling for people to be put on the no-fly list. And I'm not saying I'm at that point yet, but you do got to wonder what's the right way to get people, to understand this message.
Well, that solution is a little bit like capital punishment for a misdemeanor. It doesn't really fix the problem just because those people, if they're banned, they're not going to be on the airplane. But at the moment that you have to evacuate with people that are on the airplane, they're still going to grab their bag and not obey the rules. It's a much broader subject. It has to do with people's disdain for authority and you're not the boss of me. You don't tell me what to do, that sort of thing. I consider myself a deontologist. All right. Now that's a long word for meaning a person who follows the rules. Most pilots are deontologists. They follow the rules, standard operating procedure. So if we're told to do something, we will do it. We will comply. But most people are not anymore these days. And again, it's putting their life and other people's lives in jeopardy. I think the only real solution that would work is no bags except for like a purse, one small bag, no bags on airplanes, period. That would solve the boarding problem, and it would solve the, if you have to get off problem, grabbing your bag and slowing down the process. But, try selling no bags on airplanes. Good luck with that.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder. I'd like to throw this out to the audience and ask what they would think. What's the proper solution? And I do want to go back just a little bit and mention that, we've talked about this in prior episodes. I'm understanding that you're probably, if in this situation, I haven't been in an evacuation, a real one, so I can understand when it hits, your all logic goes out the window and you're just trying, your basic instincts and your bag is attached to you. So I understand the nature to want to grab the bags. This is more of a, okay, how do we get past that and find a solution that would actually work. And like you said, I do think it's a little bit extreme. I just thought that was interesting to see what people are out there calling for, and I don't know if it's more awareness, more, that. So I would be interested to see. I saw one comment on our first podcast that we talked about this saying that there should be a locking mechanism in the overhead bins that when you evacuate that you can't get out. And I'm like, all that's going to do is somebody's going to pry harder probably and block for even longer. So
it could be. The only solution is you can't take the bag with you. If you don't have it, you can't take it off the airplane. The two motivations are, one is you're not the boss of me, but the other one is it's a security thing. It's my bag. It's my stuff.
Yeah.
And so in an insecure situation like an evacuation from an airplane, you're grasping for something that is familiar and secure, like I've got my things in this bag. And then the mentality is, well, it's only going to take me a split second to grab it. I'm standing here waiting for the person in front of me to go. Why not grab my bag and take it with me? Well, if there's 80 people on the airplane doing the exact same thing and it takes them 1 second to do that, you've slowed the whole thing down by a minute and a half on the airplane. So it's, again, if you don't have the bag, you can't take it with you.
It wasn't you that you told me a stat about something about for how much of a difference it is with evacuating with bags versus without. I mean, it's significant. I mean, we're talking like it's like 90 seconds to 20 minutes or something.
Right. And the FAA wants you to get off that airplane within 90 seconds of a full airplane. So, and that's you only using half of the exits. So that's a pretty ambitious goal. But again, fire doesn't, if there's a fire that's raging out of control, it doesn't care about your bag and it doesn't care about you. You got to get off that airplane and get away from that airplane. It's very dangerous.
Yeah, and there's nothing, as I said, there's nothing in that bag that can be worth another person's life. And, and we've pointed this out too. And, on a 777, guess what? You and I, we're sending the FB out to, outside. You and I are going to be walking up down the aisles, risking our lives as well as the crew. The crew has to stay there at the station as well, the flight attendants. So, people are putting their lives on the line. I think the very least, I don't know why it gets so, I think most people agree, but there are some people that are just like, exactly like you said, I'm not going to do what you tell me just because. And for those kind of people, if it's an intentional, I would be willing to consider some options. But I do think it's an awareness thing that hopefully that you and I can help out with and keep bringing awareness to it, because it is, at some point it's going to cost a life, and we're going to go back and say, listen, we talked about it. And my favorite video, you can watch it on YouTube. It's not my favorite. It's favorite in the sense of for this topic. It's favorite that there's a Russian plane, they're evacuating, and you see people coming off with the bags, and the plane ended up, catching on fire. About half the people died, and half people got off. So you imagine you're taking your bag because, for what? And who knows? For me, my big thing is kids. And if it was a kid, you imagine for your bag, you traded that for a kid's life. I couldn't get over that. So, as I said, we'll see what the audience says. I'd be curious to know what they think, if there's any solutions. Maybe they'll have the, award-winning Nobel Prize for figuring this topic out. All right, let's move on to another one. Again, we've been doing pretty good, flat earth, conspiracy, different conspiracies. But before we get into it, I just want to mention a quick announcement. I am doing a student pilot giveaway, and we're giving $1,500 to 3 separate student pilots to go towards their flight training. And I'm just really excited about it. One of my sponsors matched it. I even had somebody off Instagram randomly donate to as well. So I'm hoping it's going to be something that's in the future, but I want everybody to know it's going to be a reel on my Instagram. There's no cost to entry. It's literally just you share your story. And I do want to mention, this is for people that are hustling to put themselves through flight school. If your parents are paying you for your flight school, or this is, you're in finance and you just fly on the weekends, this isn't for you. This is for somebody that's, a flight attendant, waiting table, stuff like that. So anyways, if you want more info on that, you can check it out on my Garybpilot Instagram. So just excited to, try and help out and help the next generation of pilots. But anyways, according to the latest conspiracy theories, and the only reason I bring this up, Steve, is because this isn't like one person posting and this has like 4 likes. Sometimes these posts, I'm looking at the views, we're talking 2 million views, 30,000 likes just on Twitter of people. So, you assume somebody likes this, they're agreeing with it. But what the latest theory is that one of the engines at Ground Zero in New York from 9/11 did not match, a 767. And they said they dropped off the wrong engine. Now, here's the thing. I didn't even go into, I never flew the 76. I obviously know you did. Not only that, you have I don't know if you want to tell the audience just in case they haven't heard about your story after this, but here's my thing, just broad view. Do you think if this person didn't drop off an engine at Ground Zero, people are gonna be like, where is that engine? I don't see it anywhere. It's just the logic to me makes zero sense. So I'm just curious to get your take on the fake or the wrong engine that's apparently at Ground Zero on 9/11.
Right. Well, you referenced my story. I was originally scheduled to be the first officer on the first airplane. It was hijacked on September 11th, American Airlines Flight 11 from Boston to LA, and I got bumped the night before. So I've been telling my 9/11 story for 25 years now, and sometimes when I'm at an event telling my story, my wife wrote a book, and I'll be signing books. You can always tell the person will come up to you, and they've got that kind of look in their eyes, and they start the conversation with, "Have you ever seen or gone to this website?" And they'll mention a website, and it's always a conspiracy about 9/11 thing. And then they want to get you to go down this rabbit hole of conspiracies about how it was a plot and the Bush administration was behind it and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, I just shake my head. And here's what I tell them. I go, look, these two things can't be true at the same time. The same person that goes to those type of conspiracy theory sites, they also believe that the biggest idiots in the world are running our governments. Absolute morons. They can't get out of their own way to help themselves. At the same time, they believe that those people are the most evil geniuses on the planet, and they concocted this entire thing to, for some reason, pull it over on the public. And then, to make matters worse, they dropped off the wrong engine. Ugh. I mean, that's it. There's the smoking gun. 9/11 didn't really happen because the evil geniuses that plotted it for some reason picked the wrong engine. Only one wrong engine, but a wrong engine.
Right. I find it kind of it must be a coincidence that, United 93 that was crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, that one was shot down because there's no video of it. But the one that was at the Pentagon, because there's not technically a video or it's a very grainy photo, that's a missile. But coincidentally, the two planes that hit the tower, well, those are planes, but the explosive, like there's always an extra to each situation to fit the narrative based on, with that. So I don't know. As I said, I didn't even do my research on this. I didn't go look at the engine that was apparently the picture and then look at the 7.6 because I go, logically, what is the point? Nobody's going to sit there and wonder why they didn't find an engine. There's no need to drop. We saw planes hit the tower. There's no point in going to drop off an engine. So from that point, I just go there. But it is crazy how fast these movements start to take. And, and I get it because I get it in the sense that, there's a lot of lying going on from the government. There's a lot of things where people have done evil things. And so at one point when the person lies, you just can't trust anything. But the problem with that is now everything is a conspiracy, and it's always, there's just nothing that is true, and you're basically just denying everything. And so it makes me wonder where the future of humanity, where we're going, where everything is a problem, where it's just these black and whites and everything's conspiracy or it's not. So but I guess I got Captain Steve on the record now that he does not agree with the fake engine.
No, I flew the very airplane that flew into the World Trade Center, so I know it wasn't fake. I knew the people that were on those airplanes, at least the crew, and so it's very personal to me. But there's the farther you get away from an event, moon landing, those sort of things. The farther you get away, the larger the conspiracy theories grow, because there's just a generation of people that didn't live through it. They didn't see it happen live on TV, and so and then they do need to move out of their mom's basement and get a job. That's just, it would help. Yeah,
exactly. That's I can always tell once you retired versus when you didn't know the cool things that you say. And that's the thing I've noticed is, for example, and I'd love to see what other people think about 9/11, because I do think there's questions to be answered to how that failed, and that's such a massive level. I'm not denying that, but the way for example, I saw somebody said, I think, did you know Betty Ong on I think that was American 11. I don't know if you knew her.
Right. I had flown with Betty a couple of times, and Betty was a very nice lady, and she's if you see a picture of Betty Ong, she's a beautiful woman, and she's very, very nice. And listening to her voice talk to the people on the ground, what a courageous woman. Right, she's been ushered to the back of the airplane by the terrorists. Back in those days, some of the airplanes had phones at the seats, and so they've gotten rid of those since then. But she picked up a phone, ran her own credit card, and called American Airlines, and she's given a blow-by-blow of what's going on in the airplane. But if the terrorists find her back there on the phone, she's going to be the next victim. So what a courageous lady to do that.
Well, and that's what, and that's what gets to me is that people say, these ridiculous things. One of the things I saw was they said, well, Betty Ong, it's clearly a setup because when she was reading she didn't even know her own flight number. She read American 10 when she was talking to the dispatcher or something. And I go, you know what? You know how many times I've gotten my flight number wrong mid-flight and stuff, like, what's her flight number again? So the fact that, I think if I'm not mistaken, American 10 was on the way over there. American 11 was on the way back. That's normal how it go. You go one number up, one number down. And the fact that she mistakenly said in a hijacking situation, that's totally normal. Like, especially under pressure, you might miss. And then she quickly corrected herself. So if you're looking at, back then, you printed out your trips, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
So what you're saying, the story you're telling is just the opposite. So Betty was the one that got the flight straight. So she's talking to the folks down on the ground, and they say they're talking to each other, but they're transmitting while they're doing it. And they said, this is American Airlines flight 12. And Betty chimes in and says, no, this is flight 11. And then they correct it and go, oh, that's right, this is 11.
Oh,
so
wow.
So Betty knew what flight she was on. But you're right about, I've gotten my call sign wrong all the time.
Yeah.
Especially if you have more than one leg a day, it's like, what call sign am I now? And that's a very common thing, and especially in the battle, in the fog of war, like she was in. Come on.
Oh yeah. Well, that's even more of a testament that she even got that right in that. So it's like, see, again, that's I listened to the comments and I didn't even go investigate it myself. It's just not even
the
worth
people in the
time,
comments
so.
get everything wrong as well. So Betty got it right. The people on the ground got it wrong, but who cares?
Yeah. Before we switch to the last subject, I'm just curious, what is your assessment now, 25 years later, is like, how does that feel to know that you were, I want to encourage everybody to go watch. It's called In My Seat, and it's on your channel. And I wanted everybody to watch it. But just 25 years later, reflecting back on that, is it still the same as the video that you did called In My Seat, or is there any changes? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, one of the things that the filmmaker did when they asked me some questions for the documentary was, how do you feel about, or why do you think God spared your life on 9/11 and took somebody else's? And my answer to that has remained the same over the years. There's no answer to that question. It's not that God wanted to do more with me than he wanted to with Tom, the pilot who replaced me. That's not the answer. All I know for sure is I was the guy left behind. And there's an obligation that comes with that. On some level, you can't go back to an ordinary life. You've got to get plugged into something bigger than yourself. I'm living on borrowed time. I know it because the date was September 11th, 2001. That's when I should have gone to be with the Lord, but I didn't. And so I've spent my life trying to further the kingdom of Christ all these years and doing what I can on social media. And so all of that is part of my passion, given the borrowed time that I'm living on. And I think all of us, that's a good perspective for all of us. All of us are living on borrowed time, whether you've got a dramatic story like 9/11 or you're just driving home and the person coming straight at you at 70 miles an hour is heads down doing this.
Yeah.
You better be prepared to leave this life at any moment. So that's kind of the bigger story for me. But 25 years later, there's still an empty space right here where a feeling needs to be. And I don't know that I'm ever going to get one, because you can't be sad. You can't be happy. You can be angry, I suppose, but there's still an empty space where there needs to be a feeling. And it's hard to describe that, knowing you should have been someplace, but you weren't. And now there's an obligation that comes with that. It's just kind of a mixed bag of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's well put. And I would say, that's along to your point. There was a philosopher that I used to listen to, and he talked about an exercise where you pretended that, the doctor called you and said, hey, you got cancer, you got, 2 months left. And you start making all the preparations and you get ready and things, and you start doing all that. And then all of a sudden you find out, he's like, hey, don't sue me, but I mixed up my paperwork. You don't have cancer. And he goes, imagine suddenly getting that rush, that back, that you're like, wow, you have this time in life to do something. And so that's kind of an important thing to think. I don't think you need to think about your own mortality every day, but it's once in a while, it's a good thing to think about, is say, hey, this is what can I do now if you had limited time left, because we do. And so it's always a good reminder. So thanks for sharing that. Let's move to the last topic. Back it's the United evacuated. Now United's back in the news. Let's go ahead and play the news clip real quick, and then we'll discuss.
Using headphones is no longer just considered proper etiquette. It is now a requirement on United Airlines flights. United says passengers who use speakers or refuse to wear headphones could be removed from flights and even face a lifetime ban. The airline says that travelers who don't have headphones can request a free pair from flight attendants.
I
It's
like
not
it.
your living room.
It's not.
It's an airplane.
You share it with the rest of us.
All right, so there's the news clip. I don't know what your thoughts are. It seems like the lifetime ban you might get the lifetime ban for the headphone without headphones versus the bringing the bags. I don't know your thoughts.
Gary, is there anything more infuriating than a person next to you or behind you or across from you playing whatever it is on speaker? They're talking to somebody on speaker, or they're playing their video, it's on speaker, and it just is, it's infuriating. And most of the time I'm on an airplane, not anymore since I'm retired, but back in the day, I was in a uniform and I'm representing my company, or I'm a guest on somebody else's airplane. So I couldn't say anything. I had to sit there and, put up with it, hoping that the flight attendants would come along and say, come on, knock it off.
Yeah.
But there's just some people. Here's the word. My wife and I invented this word years ago. We teach a parenting course, and there's parents that are this. They are bolivious, not oblivious, but bolivious. They're so oblivious they might as well be in Bolivia. That's the connection, right? They're bolivious.
Okay.
So there's people on an airplane that are bolivious. They're listening to this thing. It's loud, and they're enjoying what they're watching, and everybody else around is giving them stink eye, like, come on, you got to turn it off. And I don't know what the answer to that is. I know they make a PA now saying, please put your earbuds on and don't be on speaker. But beyond that, I don't know what you do. What do you think?
Yeah. That's a good question. You're a little bit nicer than I am, because even, my thing is if you got to follow the rules. So if I'm in uniform or not, I say something, but I'm a little more like upfront, and I say it in a nice way, but I say, hey, that's, it's against the rules. But I get what you're saying, because a lot of times it's not technically our job, especially if you're just deadheading or, non-revving as a passenger. But I would like to ask the audience, is there anything more annoying? Because the only thing I can think of is when people go in the bathroom without shoes on, with their socks, or sometimes even barefoot. I go, that's more of a, makes me just want to throw up. But as far as annoying, I think you're right. So I'd be curious to know what their thoughts are, what the audience thinks is. So comment your most annoying thing. But yeah, I would say, the fact that it has to be said, I just don't understand. I guess that old saying that common sense isn't so common. I don't understand how you could think that that's acceptable. Sometimes, when we're traveling with our daughter, it's, if she starts throwing a fit, we bring out an iPad, she won't keep the headphones on. But what we do is keep it just low enough where I can't even hear it, and it's just there, so it's at least courteous. But the fact that, like you said, some people sitting there on a phone call playing loud music. I mean, I even saw a person connect one of those portable speakers and started playing the music. So it is funny to see United step up and start enforcing this. So I don't know. It's just it's interesting for sure. Well,
different cultures have different levels of tolerance regarding technology in public. And over in Japan, if you're on a public bus or in public on your phone, just not on speaker, but just talking on your phone, somebody will come and tap you on the shoulder and go like that.
Yeah.
They don't even want you talking on the phone on a bus. So
I believe it. Yeah.
And you know what? I'm okay with that, but I'm a boomer. So, other people are like, well, boomer, you didn't grow up with this technology. We did. I get it. But at least don't be on speaker. I mean, put your earbuds in or something, but wow.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I mean, you even see those, it's a lot of it is culture. If you go in a lot of places, like I noticed Germany one time, I was on a bus. I was like 19 or something. And I put my feet up on the chair on the bus, and somebody instantly came over. This guy told me to put my feet down. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But you see other videos in Japan where they're going up the subway, and everybody stays on the right side, and the left side is completely open. But it's like a cultural thing. And I also found out certain Asian cultures that they say that losing your temper worse than death is preferable to losing your temper in public. So I'm like, there's a lot of like you said, different culturals and cultural differences and things. So yeah, I don't know, very interesting to watch, and yeah, I guess we'll have to see what everybody says about it. So, oh yeah, I was going to say you're boomer, I'm millennial, but the last comment, people thought we were father sons.
They did. They did. We should get T-shirts made.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm doing the podcast with my dads.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, Captain Steve, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for this. Let's get back here and do another one soon. And as I said, everybody that wants the scholarship, just go to Instagram, look out for the reel, and it will be there. So.
Yeah, it's a great cause. Good on you, Gary, for doing that.
All right, absolutely. All right. Talk soon. Thanks, Steve.
Yep. See you, brother. See you next time.